Hi everybody, and welcome back to Shelby Township Library's Tech Time. I'm Brandon, and it's great to have you here. Today we're going to talk about coding, what it means, and how do we get involved. It's really become a part of our world. We have so many gadgets at home now. Refrigerators are smart refrigerators with computer programs. Our ovens, we're using air fryers with AI in them. What does that mean? We're wearing smartwatches that talk to us and follow our health. Amazon just came out with a fun little ring that you wear, and it keeps track of your pulse and your heart rate and all sorts of other data. How does this all get built? If we wanted to tinker with it, how do we get started? Does it cost a lot of money? Those are some of the things that we're going to cover today. The great news is learning coding is wildly free. It doesn't cost a lot. Many employers are encouraging us to learn coding. It's starting at a young age in our curriculum for children. It's great because coding involves so many day-to-day skills that it really kind of wraps what we know up in a bow, and it makes it a complete package. Children are learning logic skills and different kinds of logical processes to see why a code works, why it doesn't work. It involves art in the idea of a user experience. We've all visit websites now. Think about when you visit a website, the color, the layout. When you push a button, does it react or is there a delay? Is there a lot of scrolling up and down and it's kind of frustrating? Have you ever visited a website on your phone or on a tablet and it looks different or even cooler? It looks exactly the same as on your computer here, as on your phone, as even on your watch. These are all what we call a user experience or a design layout. And the children who may not necessarily feel confident in coding definitely could bring their eye to a user experience. So when we talk about creating websites, maybe we want somebody to draft them up first. Coding requires math skills, and it really helps develop concepts of what circumference looks like, what does an area look like if we were going to measure it, proportions, and those kinds of mathematical ideas are all used here. And coding's just not for the youth anymore. As we know, we build our cognitive skills as seniors and as adults by learning new things. We keep our brain flexible. So learning this is a lot like doing Sudokus or doing math and word puzzles, crosswords a day. If you sit down and you do a 30-minute crossword or an hour doing puzzles, you have the ability to learn coding. A lot of coding classes are about 300 hours long, which works out to about 6 hours a week or something like that. It's not a lot, an hour a day, and you could be on your way to coding, which could give you new career opportunities that we're going to discuss. All of the coding jobs are in high demand right now, and according to the Bureau of Labor Studies and Statistics, it's only growing by 8 to 13% in per career path. So let's take a look at some of the websites that we'll be using to learn about coding, and then we'll discuss, what does it mean talking about Java or C++ or HTML, things that maybe you've heard before but not quite understood what they mean. So our three popular websites is W3 Schools, Learn to Code, then we have Free Code Camp, and a newer one, the Odin Project. Let's get started with W3 Schools. All of these websites are free. They cost no money. They do not require a credit card. They're not necessarily a service to the community, some of them. There'll be ways for them to make money in there, but some of that is the legitimacy of providing a certificate after your program to say you did learn this. So record keeping, and is a relatively small cost. To maybe like removing advertisements on like Free Code Camp, where there could be some advertisements on the side. But again, all of these you can access from your home computer, and you could start learning coding today. So, one of the great things about a bunch of these websites is how clean they are, which really kind of reinforces that idea of an artistic integrity to developing a website. When we look at W3 Schools, we kind of see exactly where we would want to go right at the beginning. We have a tutorial section, references, so once we learn something, exercises, and videos. And they're very clear over here on paid courses. So if you wanted more and you decided that you really enjoy this, you can visit paid courses. You can log in and create an account for free, and that will keep track of your progress. And that is something that you very well may want to do, because there is a lot going on here. And I'd encourage you to dive in and not be intimidated. W3 Schools starts with the coding of HTML, a hypertext markup language, which sounds really cool and maybe a little intimidating, but it's one of the easier languages to learn. So HTML is what creates our websites. It's kind of the spine of the website, so to speak. And on the side here is a sample where we start with just a blank Word document, and we put in HTML to let the website know that that's the language we're speaking. And we'll just put a title in, and we'll start a body. And all of these headings here actually mean something. And a lot of the coding that we would use is going to start in HTML. All of these codes can work together or in synergy to create a more exciting website. If you happen to have been using the internet back in the 90s, you'll remember the pages were very flat. There was text on it, but it wasn't always well organized. There was kind of a picture shoved in there. And then in the 2000s, we had one of our more popular social medias, MySpace, and you really saw a lot of the high schoolers then designing these really action-packed websites with pictures and sparkles in the background and music. They were using HTML code then to design those websites. And now we have all the rotating videos and columns and editing pictures, and we have all these online games. HTML is working with other coding to make these websites. And by clicking on Learn HTML here on W3 Schools, we can be brought to an entire tutorial to learn this program. So it starts with the introduction and the basics, and if we follow this column, we will see we're getting to forms and graphics and media, and it's so exciting. I can't stress enough that you don't have to be intimidated. Just click on introduction, and it will start right from the beginning. Anybody could sit down here, and by the end of this session, they could have HTML skills that could assist them in a job, in a workforce, in just having fun on the internet and understanding more of what's going on. And W3 Schools will let you edit and program yourself here. So this is real programming that we can be silly in. Instead of saying my first paragraph over here, we could say, welcome to the Shelby Township Library. And notice that we have those capitalization issues there. When we click run, we'll see it just transfer right over here. So while it is just a white page now, by the time that you work your way through all of these training seminars, you are going to have a very exciting, colorful page. After HTML, we will have what's called CSS. That is a cascading style sheet. So if HTML is kind of, as I said, like the skin and bones of the website, CSS is the style guide. That's what's recommending what color the page looks like, what color is the font, what color are the pictures, do we have sparkles in the background. CSS was a very exciting addition to coding languages as it brought so much flavor to a website. So when you learn HTML, you will likely follow along and learn CSS by accident. And if you take a look here, it looks very similar to HTML. So they tend to go hand in hand. And again, we can click Try It Yourself, and you'll see now we have this beautiful cornflower blue in that section that was once white. And if we go to this left-hand side, we will still see our HTML right here. So we'll see the font it's choosing is Verdana. We'll see the color is white, but we could change that if we wanted to. And we'll see my first CSS example change from white to black. And instead of light blue, we could change this to red. And we can see that it changes. This is something that a lot of companies use, a lot of cities and townships use. Shelby Township has a style guide that we all follow to get that Shelby Township green. When you work for larger corporations, each color has a number. And you'll follow along with that number and you'll apply it to all your documents, and that's how you know you have the right shade to be consistent in all of your projects. And CSS is one of the items that gives us that power. Next that we have is JavaScript, the language for programming web pages. Now, JavaScript is one of the most popular coding languages on the internet. Everybody ends up using and learning it eventually. The reason is because it's powerful and it's easy to learn. Obviously, there's a hurdle for all coding and there's barriers there. Learning new skills can be challenging, but Java is a programming language that was created for the person to understand more than the computer to understand. That was one of the defining logics of this language. And you can really see that when you start to learn it. If we click on Learn JavaScript, we will see we have a long area here on the side, but the topics are kind of something that you can just understand. It's math, it's comparisons, it's creating loops. So you could do something like run this process 100 times and it will run it 100 times. You could create breaks and do kind of a processing of data with JavaScript. It's what lets us run a lot of neat programs. It's what lets us run kind of like the calculators when you go to a banking website and you are wanting to see how much a car would cost, and so the program grabs the latest interest rates, or you would input them and you would put how much money you're putting down, how much is the car. JavaScript is part of that programming there. And it's really, really useful. It added a lot of features to websites, and we still use it to this day. So this, again, is about a 300-hour class. You'll start with your introductions, and you will be on your way. And again, there are examples of JavaScript and how it will work. After HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Then we will have Python. This is a popular coding language. You will see this used in a lot more of a data science kind of way. It's a little more mathematical, but when you see some of those neat charts and things online, Python could be one of the ways that it's used. Data scientists really enjoy using Python. So again, W3 Schools gives us a whole engine to run around here. So I encourage you to take a look. HTML is where you would really want to start. You'll find a lot of these kind of overlap a little bit, but Python is a great spot. One of the last ones that we will chat about today is SQL. And you've used SQL, SQL, more than you know. SQL is a database query language. So when you visit the library and we take your information, Brandon, last name Howard, the address, the phone number, the email, we give you a library card number in return. Something that starts 2151500 something, 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 something. We're giving you an access ID or some kind of ID for the computer system. And what's going on is all of that information is linked to that number. And then we put that number in a large database. And so that number is associated with all of my information. And so when I type it in the computer, and then I type in the 4-digit code to unlock that information, it brings everything up there. It shows I'm a library patron, what books I have checked out. It can show any kind of history associated with it. And this is exactly how SQL works. It's through a database management or a query that is question. We create questions, such as over here it says select from customers. And we're saying where customers? Customers in Mexico. So if we were to change this from select from library patrons, where library patrons, we would say Shelby Township Library. And there is a large list of Shelby Township Library patrons. You would see this again used in mailing lists when you're at grocery stores. We don't necessarily realize that we're using SQL because we're just inputting an email address and then maybe some birth date information or an address for mailings behind it. But in that computer system, there will be a unique ID or an access ID associated with that information. And it's really neat. Again, it's kind of a logical monster. So you would do a select from, type in your data lists, whatever you name the document, and you would tell the document what you would want to do. I want to pull all people who have a birth date of December 13th. I want to pull from this list people who have lived in Shelby Township for less than 3 months so we can mail them things and say, welcome to the neighborhood. Here's a coupon book from local businesses. SQL can be very powerful like that. And if you've ever received something and you're like, how did they know I need new gutters? Possibly they just were running the marketing company was running a SQL query for people who purchased houses in the last 5 years or more. And assuming maybe you need to get new gutters because you've taken care of other domestic things and you've had this house for 5 years and it's time for new gutters. So SQL is really great, and I encourage you all to take a look at that and run through some of the demos on there. When we visit other websites, like Free Code Camp, you'll see they are set up similarly, but they might use some different terminology. We are on Free Code Camp here, freecodecamp.org, and we'll see that they're using terminology that W3 Schools was not using. So, what does this mean? So we have responsive web design certificates. That's going to be that conversation we had about user experiences. Then we have front-end development. So when we speak about libraries when we speak about coding and websites, there tends to be two different career paths when a person learns coding. And of course, there's many more, but just for simplification, you have a front-end coder. When you looked at the coding we were chatting about, you had like HTML and style guides in Java. Those things impact a user's experience on the website. Those would be front-end design coding, things that place buttons in particular spots, or once you visit a website, maybe there's a pop-up that says, "Welcome, this is the first time you're here. Let us show you around." Things that make things better for a user. A back-end designer is somebody who's really taking care of the servers in the back. I like to liken it to the infrastructure of the website. If you've ever visited a website and it's just down, or it says, "We'll be back soon for maintenance," or "We're maintaining the website," or "Server is not communicating, there's a host issue," those would be back-end developer codes. I like to liken it to the infrastructure of a community. When we're using the community, we just kind of plug our things in the outlet and it just works, and we don't question how the electricity got there. We just know that the electricity is going to get to that outlet and it's going to work. Same with our water. We don't necessarily question too much about our water system. It just works wonderfully. And when it doesn't, we know, and everybody knows, and none of us are happy. So there's a lot riding on a back-end web developer. And both of these jobs have an exciting future when we look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Web developers and digital designers, according to a 2020 study, are pulling in about $77,000 a year. Typically, they require just a bachelor's degree, and many jobs are hiring the worker without any related experience. One of the reasons for this is because of the growth. There is a 13% outlook growth for this job field. It is growing faster than average, and really doesn't surprise us. As we chatted at the beginning, everything has technology in it. It all seems to have this artificial intelligence. We can chat with our cars, we can chat with our refrigerator. Somebody needs to manage the websites for these things to make the user experience positive when we have questions. Now, a back-end developer, or we call them sometimes database administrators and architects, they're pulling in, according to the business labor statistics, $98,000 a year on just a bachelor's degree. No on-the-job training is required for some of these jobs, and it's about an 8% growth. So it's very exciting there as well. And as you see with all this free education, it will take work, some dedication, a little bit of elbow grease, but you can get yourself into some of these jobs when you show your employer that you're interested and you've put the effort in there. And that's where some of these websites maybe get a little different, because you'll see it says certification. So at the end, you will pay for a certification exam on W3 Schools or Free Code Camp, and you can show that you spent the 300 hours in that class, you passed a standard HTML exam, and you can throw that on your resume and let us know how that works. It sounds to be a very promising offer. So the next website that we will chat about quickly is Hour of Code. Hour of Code is really exciting for teachers and homeschool parents. It's exciting for grandparents who want to offer maybe some more educational, fun when they're watching grandkids and things, but they don't know how to get their toes wet in this whole coding experience. HourOfCode.com offers a wide range of resources, including computer-free learning programs. Let's select Try It and take a look. You'll see the website, which we would call this the front end, is very engaging. It's full of colors. Now that we're looking out for it, we can see our style guide here. We could see how the colors are changing and there's different fonts. We can see how there's buttons on here. It's really exciting. And we can see that there's all of these different games here. We have games for grades beginning to 9+. Even pre-readers are on here. And these could be great to play with the grandkids. We can select one, and it'll give us an example. In a world filled with captivating creatures and bright colors, 4 to 6-year-olds will join a monkey on a mission to collect bananas and unlock treasure chests. All the while, they will explore and learn the basics of code as they use blocks to program a monkey's journey through the world. This could be a great shift here from doing Sudoku puzzles or word searches. If you're just a little tired and want to try something different, I encourage you to do this with the grandkids or make a cup of coffee and really adventure through this website. On the side here, you'll see all the different computers that it could work with, including internet requirements. So you can select no computers and you will still have different kinds of puzzles and learning experiences for everyone and every age group. Finally, we have the Odin Project. This one's relatively new to me, but is really exciting. And I've used exciting a lot, but it really is. This is a lot of free education that you can have to really develop your skill set and your toolbox. And really, it just requires an hour or two a day. And by the end of the year, your career outlook could change. You just are going to understand a little bit more, and you're going to be proud of yourself that you challenged yourself and learned something new. So the Odin Project has some user-submitted materials. While these other websites were run by organization, the Odin Project is kind of a group-driven open source community. You would be familiar with another open source project called Wikipedia, which is that user-submitted online encyclopedia. And the Odin Project would be that, but for learning coding. So you'll see the last update was 16 hours ago. They have a very exciting community that's very willing to assist. And when we click on View a Full Curriculum, we will see that it has many different coding opportunities here for us, but it focuses on full stack Ruby on Rails and full stack JavaScript. And those will be coding languages we're not necessarily going to get in today, but they're very reputable. They're used in a lot of different jobs. Ruby is a very positive coding language, very easy to learn. Again, it follows a lot of logic, so it will create a lot of different logic puzzles for you. So, what did you think? If you have any questions, I hope you'll reach out. Coding is a lot of fun, and it's really a great thing to learn a little bit with, so you can share this experience with your children. You can understand what's going on in the news a little bit better, because there's been a lot of coding terminology in the news recently. We can learn different ways to help our young people grow and understand their homework, and certainly we can learn more about each other. Thank you everyone for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you at the library. Have a great day.